This week's edition of NJBIA's Minding Your Business is brought to you in part by AT&T, helping family, friends, and neighbors connect in meaningful ways every day. From the first phone call 140 years ago to mobile video streaming today, AT&T innovates to improve lives. New Jersey's community colleges, aligning education to build an innovative workforce. Find out how your business can join and benefit at njpathways.org. And by New Jersey Business Magazine, providing the critical information needs for New Jersey's business community for more than 65 years.
Welcome to NJBIA's Minding Your Business. I'm your host, Bob Considine. Well, for 20 years, the Institute for Entrepreneurial Leadership, or EIFL, has fought for more inclusive entrepreneurial ecosystems. EIFL CEO and co-founder Jill Johnson is here with us today to discuss the work being done to ensure that people of color have an equal opportunity for business success. Jill Johnson, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so before we get started on it, you have a huge event coming up March 8th to March 10th, a virtual event, which we're going to get into. But I wanted to start off today by talking about EIFL. For folks who don't know the mission of what you're trying to do here, let them know what it is.
So, Bob, our mission really is about eradicating barriers. Okay. And these are barriers that are systemic in nature that have really prevented people of color, especially from Black and Hispanic communities, from being able to even have a path to success.
Yeah, do you think a lot of people are aware of this right at the top of the bat?
No. And I think really the awakening that we saw post-COVID and post the brutal murder of George Floyd, I think really helped to open people's eyes. And it was apparent just from what we saw then that a lot of people really did not know.
Yeah. Take me back 20 years when you first started this initiative. What drove it?
Yeah, so it really was an outgrowth of my parents' experience as business owners. My parents, Jan and Henry Johnson, had a newspaper publishing business called City News. Okay. They had that business for about 20 years.
Was it Plainfield?
It was in Plainfield, exactly. It started as Plainfield Today, which is where I grew up. Okay. And then they moved to Newark back in sort of the beginning of the Newark Renaissance. Right. They moved the newspaper to Newark, and they were really a part of the fabric of not only the city, but the entire state. Well, as the daughter of small business owners, I had an opportunity to really live through it, to understand what it was like to have a business, to see challenges with payroll, challenges with employees, having cash flow crunches, and good times as well. Yeah. But I really was able to understand what it was to be a small business owner. Right. Fast forward to when I graduated from college, I had an opportunity to start my career in the financial analyst program at Goldman Sachs in mergers and acquisitions.
Great.
Well, Bob, as you can imagine, that was a huge difference. Yeah. And that was a world where capital really was not a primary barrier. Right. So my father and I, when my parents decided that they no longer wanted to, just when they were ready to retire, essentially, my father and I came together and said, what was it that they wished that they had had? What is it that he wishes that he had known? And I think part of that was even how to create a business in a way that you could extract the value when you were ready to retire. Okay. That's just not something that is well known among many small business owners, but especially small business owners in Black and brown communities. Right. I wanted to take my experience and create a resource for small businesses to be able to move from simply being a small business out of necessity or out of your passion to being a resource that people could take that business and turn it into value extraction and create wealth for themselves, their families, and their communities.
Right. So you get this organization together. How long does it take? And do you find that there's great interest in it in the community?
There is. Business owners in general struggle.
Yeah.
It's tough being a business owner, even if you have a lot of resources.
Yeah.
It's difficult. You know,
We hear those stories here at NJBIA.
You know, that doesn't mean you're going to be successful just
Right.
because you have even a lot of money.
Yeah.
But imagine if you have very limited resources.
Right.
It's nice to say, make mistakes, learn from your mistakes, fail forward, all those good things.
Fail forward, right?
Right. But if you don't have resources, one small failure, let alone a major setback, that could put you out of business because you just don't have the resources to recover.
Right. So 20 years on, how much have you seen the needle move in awareness that people of color who want to start a business need this kind of financial assistance?
You know, I think, Bob, the shift for me over that period of time, when we started the Institute for Entrepreneurial Leadership, we were very much focused on the pipeline, on supporting business owners, helping them to be better business owners.
Right.
There's still a lot of that we do, and I think education is always valuable. It's always good to learn more. But what I really took a step back to assess, probably about 3 to 4 years ago now, is the fact that we have been doing this work for so long. There are a lot of organizations that are doing similar work, or they're in a similar space. And unfortunately, not a lot has changed for this segment.
Yeah.
And I think that was what we saw again during this awakening period, that people were realizing that, wow, you know, we have been talking about some of these issues for not just even the 20 years of our existence, but my parents with their newspaper were talking about these business for their 20 years of existence. So these issues have been ongoing. I think we've not seen the needle move the way that it should if we were all really fully aware, and if the broader society as a whole was fully aware that these are the issues that exist.
Right. You mentioned early on the word systemic. What do you mean by that? What is causing this?
Systemic meaning, you know, I heard someone make a comment not too long ago on a call that good entrepreneurs don't have any difficulty finding capital. Right? So he said that on a call, and there were a couple of us who took a step back and said, Now the thing is, Bob, in his world, I am sure that that is actually true.
Yeah.
The challenge is with that mindset, if that is a mindset that you have, you're thinking then when you meet other entrepreneurs who talk about having challenges with access to capital, in your mind then, the issue is that, well, they must not be a good entrepreneur, right? And they need some training, they need some education. And that's really what we have seen in a lot of the small business support over so many years. The focus has been on training the entrepreneurs. They need to be better. Well, as I said before, it's always good to have education and training, but the issues that we see are not because the entrepreneurs are not good. It has nothing to do with the entrepreneurs themselves. And I'm not talking about anyone being guaranteed success. You know, this is, you're more likely to fail in business, as you all know.
Yeah, sure. No,
you know that all too well.
It is tough. And it's also tough in this state if you take everything else out of the equation. There's a lot of things that a business has to deal with. Yeah.
It's tough being a business owner. But the challenge is that when you look at what it takes to be successful, for many Black and brown business owners, they don't have access to the various components that are needed for success even to be possible, let alone probable.
Right. So is your work, obviously you want to help entrepreneurs who come to you, but are you also reaching out to venture capitalists, people with money, to get them involved? Is this where your worlds join?
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. And in the last 4 years, even more so. And that's even what the Women of Color Connecting Summit is all about.
Right.
It really is about identifying people and reaching out to people who believe that diversity and inclusion are really important. And they say that this matters. Well, okay, you say it matters, but then what are you doing?
Right.
And what we're trying to do is to create an opportunity for people to use their resources, their networks, their relationships to help to open doors for people for whom those doors have been closed historically.
And we should get the official name. It's the Women of Color Connecting Seminar. It's convening to bring investors and allies and policymakers all together for the same purpose.
It's the Women of Color Connecting Summit.
And
we call it WOCON 2022.
WOCCON.
Yes, WOCCON.
Got it.
WOCON 2022.
Okay, and when did you first have this first summit?
It was in 2019.
2019
was our first, and 2020 we were able to get it in just before COVID started.
Right.
And it was a tremendous event. We did it virtually last year.
Right.
We were able to reach people in 26 states participating.
No kidding.
And in 2 other countries as well who joined us for
this. This is not just a New Jersey thing. This is
this is national for sure. We're attracting a lot of people from the West Coast, from the Silicon Valley area, really from all over, because there is great talent. There's a lot of innovation all over, and we're seeing, even though there's capital that's concentrated in some key areas, it's still not there for women of color.
Yeah.
So we're trying to bring folks together who can open doors, people who want to figure out how can I make a difference just using my relationships and my professional expertise.
Yeah.
You know, we're saying together we really can make a difference.
So the summit sounds amazing. Have there been any kind of success stories, tangible, I met this investor and now I have a business? Has that happened, or is that too soon?
And let me be clear, this summit is not about investor matchmaking.
Okay.
That's not the focus.
Mm-hmm.
It really is about relationship capital connections.
Mm-hmm.
Any investment, any kind of support always starts with a relationship, because what do we do naturally as people? We help the people who we like and who we trust, right? And so the focus is about relationships, but I can tell you about a couple of relationships that have happened that have been amazing.
Well, you've said it before how important relationships are in all of this, so please do.
Right. So we have a business owner. She's been in business for a while, great business that has really been growing. She met a woman there who was part of even our event committee. And they have been having meetings. And by the way, I should say, she's in kind of the investor world and the family office world. Mm-hmm. She's in the Boston area. Our entrepreneur is here in New Jersey. Mm-hmm. They have been meeting every week on Thursdays to talk about the numbers, you know, for this investor to help her really think more about the numbers and just focus on that. And it's a source of support. Mm-hmm. There has been some capital that she's even helped her to try to raise, and she's a supporter of her in raising capital. We have people who have met and joined the board of a particular organization. Yeah. The relationship part of this runs so deep. Unfortunately, you know, it's a little tough for us to track all of that, but we know because we see the people interacting on an ongoing basis, and it's really phenomenal. And we saw a lot of interaction even just during the summit itself.
Yeah. So I'll ask you, 20 years you've been doing this. What do you get out of all this when you've helped one person versus even hundreds of people? What do you get at what level of satisfaction? And do you go to bed at night thinking, wow, I just helped this person start a business?
You know what's funny, Bob, is that we've been doing this for 20 years. We've helped thousands of entrepreneurs, helping people not only get in business early in our organizational life cycle. Now our focus really is people who are in business and helping them to get on that growth scale, exit, value creation, wealth creation trajectory. That's our focus. And while we have helped so many people, and we have people who will tell us on a regular basis, there are different virtual events that we have, and at the end of the event, we ask for feedback. People will say, this was life-changing for my business. This is something that will help my business to grow and get to the next level. With all of that, when I go to bed at night, typically I'm thinking of how are we going to get more capital to these entrepreneurs? how are we going to get more people to understand that these are businesses that are worthy of investment, not just grants to for-profit businesses, but actual investment, and that if you invest, you can actually produce a return. It doesn't have to be just social impact investment that, you're a business person, you want to take money and invest it and get a return. There are businesses from Black and brown communities, there are innovators from these communities that are creating businesses that, again, have a return profile. And they're worthy of investment, they need investment, and they're part of and should be part of the innovation economy.
Right, very good. Well, all of this great stuff is at the Institute of Entrepreneurial Leadership's website, which is weareifel.org, correct?
It is.
And you can also find out about the summit, the Women of Color Connecting Summit.
Absolutely.
Which is March 8th to March 10th. Do go check it out. Jill Johnson, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
All right, and we will be back right after this NJBIA Business Outlook Survey data point and a word from our sponsors.
Okay, at AT&T, everyone gets our best deals on all smartphones.
Let me break it down. You got your new customers.
They get our best deals.
You got your existing customers. They
Also get our best deals. Everyone gets the deals.
questions.
Got it. But why did you use a permanent marker?
Because I want to make sure you remember. I'm going to get a new whiteboard.
It's not complicated. Only AT&T gives everyone our best deals on every smartphone, like the Samsung Galaxy S21 5G for free.
Welcome back to NJBIA's Mind Your Business. I'm Bob Considine. Well, the Murphy administration is looking to ban natural gas as part of its goal of establishing 100% clean energy by 2050. But will it happen, and at what cost to residents and businesses? Here to discuss those questions and others is NJBIA Vice President of Government Affairs, Ray Cantor. Ray, thanks for being back on the show.
Bob, I'm glad you invited me back.
Anytime. You know where we live. So let's talk about this, Ray. What is the latest on the Murphy administration's plans for natural gas in New Jersey?
Well, as you know, in I believe January of 2020, the Murphy administration released their energy master plan, and that plan essentially calls for the phase out of natural gas by 2050. The phase out of natural gas to heat your homes. Right now, 80% of homes are heated by natural gas.
Wow.
The phase out of natural gas to create electricity. Over 40% of our electricity comes from natural gas. So this is a major policy pronouncement, and we'll see if that's possible. Actually, we don't think it's possible just because of those numbers and because it's a stable, reliable, and affordable source of energy. Until technology changes, we think we need natural gas.
Yeah, and should we explain that natural gas is actually needed to electrify, correct?
Absolutely. So even if we went toward wind and solar, they're not 100%. They're intermittent sources of power.
Right.
When the sun doesn't shine, when the wind doesn't blow, you need backup power. Batteries can only get you so far. Right now, it's about 4 hours worth of battery power at a tremendous cost. Even under the optimistic viewpoints of realistic people, you need reliable sources like natural gas to back those sources up.
Right. Let's talk about, this topic of conversation. It's not only happening in New Jersey, it's happening elsewhere around the country, correct?
It's not happening as a topic, it's actually happening in other states.
Like where?
How about New York City?
Wow.
New York City, just in the last several months, passed a law basically saying that all new construction of 7 stories and under buildings cannot have natural gas hookups.
Okay, so this is all new buildings, not...
New buildings.
Okay.
There are no proposals, at least that have passed yet,
Right.
for retrofits. And even here in New Jersey, while there is talk of banning natural gas in new construction, they realize the challenge of retrofits. But again, to meet the energy plan goals, they're assuming there's going to be retrofits there as well.
Wow. And retrofits, they come at a cost, I assume, as well.
Well, and it's not only the increased cost of electricity versus natural gas, and it's not only the fact that boilers for electricity are more expensive than the boilers for natural gas. If you have an old home, it wasn't built, to electrify. You have to make sure you have enough electricity coming into your home. The panels. A lot of inner city homes, don't have that. To have the right vents, to make it all work. It's not as simple as taking in one boiler and shifting in another. So, that's why it's almost infeasible for retrofitting, especially in urban areas.
Right. I was reading on this morning. In California, 50 municipalities have banned natural gas in new buildings so far. So is there something to be said for, California could be fairly warm, where we could be a very cold weather state, as we discovered today. Is it even less feasible in New Jersey because we need to heat more than a place like California?
All the studies that we have seen about cold weather areas, especially in the Northeast, especially coming out of Boston, some of these studies have come from there, is that electric heating boilers just do not work as efficiently as natural gas. In fact, a lot of folks up in the Boston area who have switched to electric power have gas-powered backups, because when it gets really cold, like it was this morning when I was walking my dogs, electricity is just not going to do the job.
I wanted to focus a little bit on where our policymakers are on this. There's two bills that, to me, they're kind of conflicting in a way. There's one which would codify the goals of the Energy Master Plan. It passed the Senate and already a couple of Assembly committees. That's Bill A7520. And then there's a bill that's already passed through the Senate, S1433, and it passed rather easily, that prohibits New Jersey from mandating electric heat or water heating systems. So they kind of go against those each other, what the intent is.
Yeah, and I think that just shows the complexity and dynamics of this issue.
Right.
If switching from a carbon-based fuel from natural gas to something different were simple and we could just do it, we would just do it.
Right.
But energy is the lifeblood of our modern society. It keeps us warm in the winter. It allows our economy to grow. You can't just turn a switch on energy systems that have been developing for 100 years with billions and billions of dollars worth of investment and just say go. We've been taking the viewpoint at NJBIA that we know we need to reduce our carbon footprint dramatically in order to address long-term climate goals. We recognize that, but we must do so in a way that protects humans who live in the state and on this planet. We all need energy. So we need to do this in a methodical way, not in a hurried way that is based on false assumptions of existential threat.
Right.
We have the time to do this right. If we get away from the extreme scenarios that some people are putting out there, we recognize what's really happening, what the science really shows about the climate threat. And if we take our time and we do it right, and if we adapt as well, we could solve this problem. And we could do so in a way that allows for our economy to grow, which allows for residents to be able to afford their electricity. I always like to tell or give the example of a little old woman in Newark in a hot summer day. Her being able to afford to turn on her air conditioner is as important for her being able to adapt to a warmer climate than anything. So we have to make sure that everyone, individuals, the women in Newark, and businesses can afford energy. It's important. It's essential.
Yeah. It's funny because you're kind of getting to the heart of some of the arguments between the environmental community and the business community, which sometimes the business community will say things, well, how much is this energy master plan going to cost? And sometimes the environmental community will come back, well, you don't want to know the cost if you don't do something. Where do you stand on that?
We want to know all the facts, and we want to make intelligent decisions. Right. But you have to rely on what the science really shows, understand what the impacts really are, and then make appropriate policy decisions after that. These are trade-offs. For instance, and I don't want to get too far into scenarios, but everyone looks at weather events, recent storms, and they say, "Oh my God, look what Sandy cost, look what Ida cost." Sure. We have to avoid that. But what the science says, what the IPCC, the International Panel on Climate Control, climate change, has said, is that there are no indications, there is no science to back up that we're having more storms. In fact, over the last 75 years, major hurricanes or hurricanes hitting the United States have gone down significantly. So people use rhetoric to create fear, which creates bad policy. We want to get back to where we have rational conversations, use the best science, and then make decisions. And we know there are policy trade-offs. We know that to meet our climate goals, and we do have to meet them, it's going to cost. But we also can't have a scenario where it costs so much that you can't afford your energy anymore. That is a trade-off we just can't have. And we also can't have a situation where our energy system is not reliable.
Yeah, what happens if New Jersey doesn't produce enough electricity in the state? I mean, what happens, is it possible that we go to other sources outside of New Jersey for that electricity?
Well, we're part of a larger regional grid of electricity. It's called PJM.
PJM.
I think there are about 16 states which are part of it. And not all of those states have as clean electric generation as we do. We get about 40-some-odd% from nuclear power, which is carbon-free. We have clean natural gas here. We have about 6% solar, and we're going to be having wind, et cetera. But if we don't produce enough electricity here, then we're buying off the grid. And the grid is coming from power sources from Ohio, West Virginia, Pennsylvania. We're shipping in much dirtier power. The Department of Environmental Protection is very much aware of that. And in a number of their recent proposals, they recognize that if they go too fast, that we're going to end up pulling in dirtier fuel than keeping natural gas here. Actually, there was a study. The department was thinking about requiring boiler fleets to show why they can't electrify. We had a conference here. We invited DEP representatives, and we showed them statistics that if boilers that they were looking at converted to electricity, we would actually produce more carbon than if they were allowed to just use clean natural gas in New Jersey. So you can't be ideological about this. You have to be practical. You have to understand what you're doing.
And did I hear you say somewhere that codifying the state EMP would actually create a ban on renewable, or could lead to a ban on renewable natural gas and make green hydrogen less likely to be developed?
Well, yeah, and 2 points about that. While the Energy Master Plan, I think, does make some mention about renewable natural gas possibly being out there, you can't just will these things into effect. If we go toward a 100% electrification scenario for transportation, for homes, heating, et cetera, you're basically squeezing out all new technologies. Those pipes in the ground are no longer going to be economically viable. Creating new sources of energy are no longer going to be able to compete with that electrification monster. So we need to move a little bit more methodical, take into account technology development over time, not have electrification only policy, but an all of the above, whatever works, whatever's coming down the road policy. Again, if we do it right, if we take our time, if we're not being overly hysterical about climate change, I think we can see the end of the tunnel. We can solve our carbonization problem, and we could do so in a manner that is, again, reliable and affordable.
All right, well, it remains to be seen. But we do know, whatever happens, you will be there front and center to have your voice heard.
As always, Bob, that's what NJBIA does.
Yeah. All right, well, Ray Cantor, thank you for being back. And thank you for joining us on NJBIA's Minding Your Business. We will see you next time.